4 years into Putin's barbaric assault, the courage of Ukrainians burns bright. We are extending sanctuary to Ukrainians in their time of need, providing the weapons and aid to support them in their fight for a just peace. We're degrading Russia's economy and planning for a ceasefire that protects Ukraine's sovereignty. That support will never falter. And yesterday, Mr. Speaker, I recommitted to President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people that we stand with them in the fight for freedom, democracy and the values that we all hold dear.
Moscow has now warned Britain to stay away from its war with Kiev. Russia has said that any deployment of British troops in Ukraine will prolong the war and not really end it. This as France and Britain have expressed their intention to send troops to Ukraine once a ceasefire with Russia is reached. The Russia's foreign ministry spokesperson has further reiterated her statement that any foreign troops will be seen as legitimate targets and an enlargement of the conflict. The feud over the deployment of the troops has spiraled as British Defence Minister John Healey wrote in a weekend newspaper article signalling that the deployment of British troops will finally mean that the war is over.
Contrary to Healey's misconception, the deployment of British troops to Ukraine would not bring the war to an end, but would prolong this conflict instead and increase the risk of a major military confrontation involving many more states. As we have repeatedly emphasized, in case of a military intervention in Ukraine, foreign contingents will become a legitimate military target for us.
Russia's renewed threats have come at the backdrop of recent reports suggesting that around 600 foreign mercenaries are signing up with the Ukrainian armed forces every month. And according to a TASS report, currently more than 10,000 foreign volunteers from 75 countries serve in the Ukrainian ground forces. Now, all this unfolds as Russian presidential envoy Kirill Dmitriev arrived in Geneva, where he is expected to hold talks with the US officials. The talks will involve Kiev's chief negotiator Rustem Umerov, who will meet with the U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and the U.S. President Donald Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner. The two sides are set to discuss post-war reconstruction and preparations for the next meeting, with Russia's previous rounds of U.S.-led negotiations between Kiev and Moscow in Geneva and Abu Dhabi have failed to yield a compromise. But Russia's series of threats don't just end there. Russia has further threatened that it will retaliate against a European Union decision to cut its diplomatic mission in Brussels to 40. Russia has slammed the move as discriminatory and unfair.
He discusses a former leader of his party. He was the former health minister, I think, who presided over record waiting lists. He was the former prison minister who left the prisons overcrowding. And he was the former economy minister under Liz Truss. We're picking up the mess and we're turning it around.
Rachel Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I very much welcome the fact that our Labour government has recognised the state of Palestine, and I also welcome the Foreign Secretary's statement last week as Chair of the UN Security Council, setting out the UK's commitment to increasing humanitarian access to Gaza and advancing a two-state solution. Does the Prime Minister agree that protecting civilians, upholding international law and supporting Palestinian-led governments are essential for a lasting peace?
Prime Minister.
Well, can I thank her for raising this really important issue, because the ceasefire in Gaza remains fragile and protecting Israeli and Palestinian civilians is critical to the next phase of the peace plan. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud of our commitment to a two-state solution, and we will be hosting a peace-building conference in March to build lasting peace and security for both Palestine and Israel. Hamas must decommission its weapons, destroy its terrorist infrastructure, and can have no future role in running Gaza. And Mr. Speaker, whilst aid flows have increased, the level of need is still dire, and the Israeli government must stop blocking supplies and preventing work of international NGOs. That is unconscionable, and it is costing Palestinian lives.
We are acting to keep alive the possibility of peace and a two-state solution. That means a safe and secure Israel alongside a viable Palestinian state. Let's be frank. Hamas is a brutal terror organisation. Our call for a genuine two-state solution is the exact opposite of their hateful vision. Meanwhile, the man-made humanitarian crisis in Gaza reaches new depths. The Israeli government's relentless and increasing bombardment of Gaza, the offensive of recent weeks, the starvation and devastation are utterly intolerable. Tens of thousands have been killed, including thousands as they tried to collect food and water. This death and destruction horrifies all of us. The hope of a two-state solution is fading. But we cannot let that light go out. So today, to revive the hope of peace and a two-state solution, I state clearly, as Prime Minister of this great country, that the United Kingdom formally recognises the State of Palestine. We recognised the State of Israel more than 75 years ago as a homeland for the Jewish people. Today, we join over 150 countries who recognise a Palestinian state also. A pledge to the Palestinian and Israeli people that there can be a better future.
Mr. Speaker, before the Prime Minister and I became MPs, parties of every colour increased the cost of going to university. The system is now at breaking point for graduates. I believe the student loans have become a debt trap. It is time for all of us to do something about it. Will he cut interest rates on student loans?
Students are racking up, on average, £50,000 worth of debt at university.
It's an interest rate racket, and people should only go to university if it's worth their while financially. I think the universities should also be free to charge whatever tuition fees they want.
Really?
Yes, you should allow it to be a market system and see...
Yeah, but then surely Oxford and Cambridge would just charge more.
Yeah, but you make more money if you've been to Oxford or Cambridge when you leave. It's a very sensible investment.
Jacob, when you went to university back in 1806, was it?
Oh, I think Oxford was just founded when I was there.
You were writing with quills on
definitely,
parchment.
Yes.
When you went to university, was debt ever an issue for you?
No, student loans came in in my last year. I think the small student loans for accommodation and things like that. But no, the student loan programme hadn't really started, and you got a grant from your local council that paid the fees.
And now we have students protesting outside Parliament. They were dressed as sharks yesterday. They had masks on of Rachel Reeves, although it was notable because one of them addressed Politics Live, which I appeared on, that they were blaming the Tories for their woes because you, along with the Liberal Democrats, did triple tuition fees. Is it all your fault?
Tripling tuition fees was a sensible and right thing to do.
Jacob, come on.
Oh, yeah, it was. Students get a huge benefit from going to university. The problem is the interest rate, and the interest rate is crooked.
Yes.
That's the thing. I have no objection to students paying their way. I think it's quite right. I also think students should think carefully about whether it's worth doing, whether it's a financial investment that they want to make. I think there are a lot of universities that don't provide good value for money, and it would be better if they shut down. There are a lot of universities that are dependent on mass migration to keep them going. If they can't make the sums add up without mass migration, they should probably go out of business. So I think you have to look at whether there's value for money, but that is a decision for the student, not for general taxpayers. But it's this RPI plus 3%. Now,
yes, explain that to me.
Okay.
Then.
The retail price index is a price index that has been abandoned for almost all government activity. Most things are index linked to the consumer price index. The RPI includes mortgage interest rates and all sorts of strange things that have been taken out of the CPI. And then to add 3% on it means that the government's actually making a margin if it ran the interest book itself on the government cost of borrowing against what they're charging the students. And this is the bit that seems to have made it go wrong, because the students never seem to pay back their debt.
Yes.
Because they're always paying the interest. Because what is RPI? RPI is probably about 4% at the moment. I mean, I'm slightly guessing, but that means you've got a 7% interest rate. Factors of 70 double, therefore your underlying fee over 10 years has doubled, roughly, just on the interest.
So for those not studying maths at either school or university, I'm going to break this down into language we can all understand by citing some of the accounts of our team. So the team here at the Daily Tea is slightly younger than me, not that much younger, but slightly younger.
They must still be at school if they're younger than you, Camilla.
You can age me by my revelation that when I was at university from 96 to 99, like the Prime Minister studying law at Leeds, I remember my father saying to me, take out a student loan because it's the cheapest debt you'll ever have. And I did so to pay for my expenses and all the rest of it. I didn't have to pay fees. They came in just after I left. I looked it up. The Students' Loans Company was set up by Margaret Thatcher back in the day. Originally, the loan was about £309. My NatWest statements don't go back far enough, but I do remember that initially the loan was interest-free. Then I started a job at the Hemel Hempstead Gazette on 10 grand a year. After a couple of years, I qualified for the repayments, and I think from rough memory, I paid back this debt that I can imagine wasn't more than £9,000 in total after I married at the age of 27. By comparison, here are some of my colleagues' stats. So, example 1, a colleague undertook an undergraduate degree and graduated in 2021. They have got £58,927 worth of debt. They've so far paid off £919, but the interest added is £1,667. So even though they're trying to pay down this debt, the interest is racked up. Example 2, again an undergraduate degree, graduated a year later, 2022. £70,455 of debt. Paid off £795, interest added £1,984. Let's give one more example because we're seeing a theme here, Jacob. Undergraduate degree and master's degree. Finished studying in 2021. £92,432 of debt. Paid off £2,401. Interest added £2,889.
Okay, I'm just looking at the first one. Just did a quick calculation on interest. If I'm right about RPI being about 4%,
yes,
then you're talking about 7% interest, which is over £4,000 a year of interest cost. Now, if you said that instead they should pay broadly base rate, the government's borrowing cost, you've got £58,000. What is it? It's 3.75 at the moment, isn't it?
Yes.
And so you're talking about £2,175. So the interest rate cost is about double
what it fairly should be,
because this debt is secured by the government ultimately. Ultimately, the government will pay it if you can't. So it's got a government guarantee. If I lent you money,
yes,
and you got no, I wish I had any to lend.
You have got quite a lot.
But I wish I had. If I were to lend you some, and you got the government to guarantee it,
yes,
I ought to lend to you at only very, very fractionally above the government.
Because I've got the government as my guarantor.
Right.
Although, and having said that, the latest growth rate stats.
Well, that's another point.
Whatever. Okay, go on.
But therefore, this debt is government guaranteed. Therefore, logically, it shouldn't be at a significantly higher rate than the government is paying. And therefore, you've got an extra £2,000 a year, for example 1, that is being paid that is essentially unfair, which makes it almost impossible to pay down the debt unless you're a very high earner.
Yes. So, of course, the debt can be written off if you never earn enough.
Yes, but that's pointless.
What's the point of going to university if you don't earn enough?
That's right. And what's the point of it having a system that's set up so that most of the debt gets written off? It's much better to get most people to pay their debt off than set such a high interest rate that nobody can afford to do it. And if interest rates are falling a bit now anyway, then you should see that £2,000, a little bit over that I was talking about, come down, and then people begin to make capital repayments, which, as with your mortgage, brings down the interest repayment as well, and you pay it off faster and faster and faster as the loan matures.
Wouldn't the government rather have a lower interest rate and these debts repaid than have a higher interest rate and the taxpayer be saddled with half of the debts because they can't be repaid?
Well, I think this is all to do with government accounting. It's very Gordon Brown-esque that you put it off the books.
Yes.
And you don't have to deal with the defaults until decades to come. So you have a pretense that it's not really government debt, it's not really happening. And therefore you keep the debt to GDP ratio down and you keep the annual deficit down. It's all to do with fancy accounting rather than the reality of the situation.
OK, before we get on to discussing between us our 9 children and how on earth higher education at this cost is going to be affordable, more of a problem for me than you, I would hazard. Should we listen to some students? Lillian and Will on our team, who may or may not be saddled with student debt, went out to speak to some.
I know that it stops after a certain number of years and you don't have to pay back after 30 years, but still that's not really fair because nobody gets to pay back, so they know that money is going to be lost anyway. Why are they stressing us with the higher interest and all of that?
I think it's so unfair, and I think education should be universalized, and the government can do so much to subsidize tuition, but they don't, and they continuously privatize certain things. They privatize accommodation, they make it harder for students to be on campus, they make it hard for international students to come as well, so everyone is kind of kicked out, and it's only the people who that have the privilege of studying here that can really coast by and not have to worry about the money.
A few decades ago it was free, and then now it's more, and third year for us it's going to be 10k for the uni fees, so I don't think it's really fair.
Yeah, exactly. I would agree with her. I would say that with the rise in costs and everything, it doesn't seem to me that uni is worth it for the price.
I'm kind of doing a master's mostly because job market's pretty tough at the moment, so couldn't really find a job last year, so decided to do a master's, and it's still pretty tough job market, so I'm hoping it opens doors, but yeah, it's kind of the addition of it being a tough job market means that a lot of people I know aren't actually in work, or if they are doing work, it's not really stuff they were looking to do after university. They're working in bars or working in call centres or something. That's what I did last year. So, yeah, it's a pretty broken system for young people at the moment.
All of that begs the question, is it worth it? Curiously, we have a situation where, on average, students have or leave university, in England at least, with £53,000 worth of debt. It's slightly lower in Northern Ireland and Wales and in Scotland, where the fees are lower, OK? But saddled with 50 grand's worth of debt before you've even started on a career and you're trying to get a car and you're trying to get a house and all the rest of it. Is it actually worth it? And what's interesting is applications have risen. So more people are applying through UCAS to get onto university courses. There is a direct correlation, by the way, with Tony Blair opening up a university for all and the cost of university soaring. We now seem to be entering a situation, I think, where, am I being cynical, or is the government actually making it more unaffordable to put more students off? And that's a curious thing for a Labour government to do, because, of course, the students that are disadvantaged are those who can't afford it.
I mean, you do have a choice. If you want it all paid for by the government, by the taxpayer, you need to go back to many fewer people going to university. And I don't think that's a choice most of the vox pops we've heard from would wish to make. This was the one way of making university affordable for about 50% of people to use. And I think the universities have a responsibility themselves. I think they should offer more scholarships. That when the numbers were low, if you go back prior to the big increase in numbers, when fees fell upon students before local authorities had taken them over, universities had huge numbers of scholarships that they gave out. So the clever but poor could go to university. I think there's a role for that. I think the universities should also be free to charge whatever tuition fees they want.
Really?
Yes, you should allow it to be a market system and see...
but then surely Oxford and Cambridge would just charge more.
Yeah, but you make more money if you've been to Oxford or Cambridge when you leave. It's a very sensible investment.
Well, I mean, that is true. Although, look at this as well. Vice-Chancellor pay. What I can't understand is, how did universities survive before fees were paid? This has also coincided with universities claiming that they are in debt and deficit the whole time. Well, hang on. How did they fare before? And why are we now in a situation where, to quote Oxford, the Vice-Chancellor there, what do you think is the total remuneration paid to the Vice-Chancellor of your old university?
Oh, probably £400,000.
660.
Yes.
That is, what are we saying, that the Vice-Chancellor of a university deserves to be paid, what is it, 4 times what the Prime Minister is paid?
No,
come on, Jacob.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. But of course, they set their own salaries. I don't mean the Vice-Chancellor sets the salary for the Vice-Chancellor, but they're set by people who work within it. And if the Vice-Chancellor is the top salary in the university, if you are number 2 in the university or number 10 in the university, that sets the benchmark for what you will get.
But why are they struggling so much? Not least because we've got more students going to university, okay? We've got more students paying fees. We've got more international students. Their course fees were an average of 45 grand last year. And by the way, the Telegraph this week did some research suggesting that foreign students are also taking out loans, and the loans bill has gone from 3.2 billion to 4 billion. Sorry, should foreign students be able to take out loans in the UK that they might not end up repaying?
No, of course they shouldn't. One of the advantages of Brexit was that we didn't have to allow European students to be funded by the British taxpayer when they went to British universities, which whilst we were in the EU we had to do. So they were allowed to take out loans as part of the system, and they paid the UK level fees rather than the higher fees. So no, that's all crazy, and the fees are crazy, the cost base is crazy. You also have some not very good universities that give people courses that don't give them better salaries when they leave. There's a lot of evidence and statistical evidence on how the premium of a degree does not apply to all universities for all courses. And those courses are a cost and not a worthwhile one.
Actually, on that, so the most lucrative degree in the country is business and management at Oxford. The median annual earnings after 5 years are around 93 grand. Second highest hitter is computer sciences at Cambridge. Then at the bottom end of the scale, this disappoints me, is performing arts. Okay, after 5 years, graduates made on average about 25 grand. But also journalism and media studies and communications is down there, which then begs the question...
But you didn't do journalism, did you?
No, I did law. But I didn't... In retrospect, I've discussed this with Nick Ferrari, who doesn't confirm nor deny that he rejected a place at Oxbridge, I think it was Cambridge, in favour of going to work for his father's, Ferrari's news agency.
But many people would turn down a place at Cambridge, wouldn't they?
Oh, listen to you. Just channeling your inner animus about the boat race in this Daily Tea studio. But regardless, now let's put it to you as a dad, because this is the other problem. With the advent of more children going to university, it then almost creates what I would suggest is a newfound grammar versus secondary modern career path. Many jobs are advertised graduates only. Some of them should not be putting that. If they are basic white-collar clerical jobs, you don't need a degree. You don't need a degree to be in this newsroom. Fraser Nelson famously used to recruit people on The Spectator on the basis of a psychometric test. He didn't care if you were a graduate or not. Can you write? Can you punctuate? Can you have an opinion and express it clearly? Come and work for us.
I completely agree with that. I think that all sorts of professions have decided to make it a quality assurance mark that has kept people out. This is what businesses, professions always do. It's like the guilds in the Middle Ages. You try and keep barriers to entry, because you've got a barrier to entry, you keep wages up. So it's all about closed shops, restrictive practices, and you shouldn't have them. It should be up to employers to decide, do you need a degree or not? Is it essential for the work you're doing? I think going straight into work, as you say Nick Ferrari did, and gosh, he's a brilliant journalist and interviewer. He's almost as frightening as you are to be interviewed by, but nobody quite reaches that.
It's nicer
that
than
height.
me, I think, slightly nicer.
To go straight into it seems to me a really sensible thing to do, and that's why I don't object to the fees, because I think people need to think about it. Is it worthwhile?
I know, but I'm saying that, and I'm looking at you as a man who went to Eton, went to Oxford. All of your children are being educated to the highest level that this country provides. Little Sixtus turns round and says, "Daddy, I think I want to go and work at the Telegraph, and they have an apprenticeship scheme as well as a graduate scheme, and therefore I don't really fancy university, and I'm going to apply as an apprentice. What does Jacob Rees-Mogg turn around and say?
Says, well done, that man.
Does he?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yes, because I think what I say to my children is that it's all about keeping options open, and that your education matters because it keeps your options open. And it's worth going to university because it opens up more options to your future career.
I have to say I was glad to learn that the Leader of the Opposition has finally admitted that they scammed the country on this. And that applies to everything they did in government. We inherited their broken student loans system. We've already introduced maintenance grants to improve the situation, which they scrapped. And we will look at ways to make it fairer. And we will do other things within the economy to help students.
Mr. Speaker, I asked him if he would cut interest rates on student loans. No answer. And for the record, energy bills are still higher than when he came into office. He keeps talking about the last government. In case he hasn't noticed, my party is under new leadership. A lot of people wish his was too, including the backbenchers sitting behind him. But let's talk again about student loans and student fees even, because to win the Labour leadership, yes, with Labour together, the Prime Minister promised to abolish tuition fees. In opposition, the Education Secretary said, graduates, you will pay less under a Labour government. I wonder what happened to those people. But can the Prime Minister tell us whether graduates are paying more or less under Labour?
The only change she's brought to her party is to make it smaller. And she talks about interest rates on loans. Mr. Speaker, not only have energy prices come down this morning, but since we were last here across the dispatch box, inflation has fallen as well, which has a huge impact on interest rates. Fallen to 3%. And the Bank of England say it's going to keep on falling. That's only happening because of the decisions that we made at the budget, opposed by the party opposite. They talk about the cost of living. This government is taking action, and under their watch, inflation was 11%, which crippled the state of finances for students as their loan rates went up.
Mr. Speaker, I am amazed that while we're trying to talk about student loans, the Prime Minister has the cheek to talk about my party being smaller. His party is smaller too, including one MP who was arrested for child sex offences. So perhaps before he gets on his high horse, he should ask why his backbenchers are saying that they're being called the Pedo Defenders Party. Yes. So why don't we get back? So if he... Yes, I didn't say it. I know it makes them... I know they don't like it, Mr. Speaker, but I haven't said anything that's not true, have I? So perhaps they should get off their high horse, stop making stupid jokes, and why don't we talk about student loans? Yes. Policies that may have been fine for 2012 with low interest rates are not fine for 2026. The fact is, graduates are paying more, not less. On Monday, the Schools Minister was asked on the BBC why Labour froze the repayment thresholds. She said the government has, and I quote, huge pressures. Those pressures have been created by his taxes and his borrowing to pay for more welfare. Why is the Prime Minister taking from students to give to Benefit Street?
What a nerve. Under their government, student loan thresholds were frozen for 10 years. 10 years. They broke the system. They did it with a bloke over there when they were in coalition together, and we're fixing it. Now, she used to say just a few weeks ago that she was going to focus on the economy at the exclusion of everything else. So I'm doing her a favour by bringing it back to the economy, because 117, desperate to talk about the economy, £117 off energy bills, inflation going down. The other thing that was confirmed on Friday, Mr. Speaker, borrowing is coming down, the biggest surplus on record. That means we've got the economy back under control. We're fixing the public finances. Now, I know the party of Liz Truss don't understand any of this, but she should welcome those changes when she next stands up.
He says they're fixing the student loan system. How? He wasn't even talking about this until I raised it. The fact is, those policies He's only talking about student loans now because I raised it. He says they're fixing the problem. The fact is, he's not. Why is it that I'm willing to ditch old Conservative policies that don't work and he wants to keep them? He's not going to do anything about it at all. On Monday, they voted to increase benefits yet again. The fact is, he is taking money out of the pockets of graduates and giving it to people who are not working. It is not fair. It is not just that he is saddling graduates with debt. It's not just that he is saddling graduates with debt. Yesterday, the Bank of England, yes, where she used to work in customer services. Yesterday, the Bank of England... Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, the Bank of England said that his policies are fueling youth unemployment. That's not us, that's the Bank of England. For the first time ever, youth unemployment is now higher here than it is in the EU. And while he blames everyone else, our young people can't get jobs, they are losing hope and even leaving the country. Will the Prime Minister tell us how he plans to deal with it?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, she says she's ditching failed Tory policies. It's a very long list, 14 years of list, and it starts with the word sorry. And when she says that word, we'll take her seriously. And Mr. Speaker, she talks about the Bank of England. The Bank of England have reduced interest rates 6 times. We've seen the fall in energy bills. Inflation is coming down. Borrowing is coming down. She hasn't welcomed any of that. I know she wanted to talk about the economy. She wanted to talk anything other than the economy. Perhaps she'll welcome the surge in retail sales as well. People are spending more on our high streets because of the action that we took. Wages boosted for millions of workers, opposed by the party opposite. Free breakfast clubs, opposed by the party opposite. Free childcare, opposed by the party opposite. Every measure we're taking to improve the economy, what do? They oppose it.
He is desperate to talk about the last government so that he can distract from the mess that he is making now. The fact is, he is the Prime Minister today. This is a man who got legislation in to fix his own pension, just him, no one else's. He won't sort out student loans for other people. He has no plan to get young people into work. He has no plan to help graduates get out of the debt trap. They can complain as much as they like. These are facts. 411 MPs, and not a single one of them has any imagination. We are the ones doing all the thinking. Yes, he has already... The Prime Minister has already made 15 U-turns. Will he make another one next week at the Spring Statement to fix the student loans system?
She wants me to talk about this government. Bills down under this government, £117. Inflation down under this government. Surplus up, record. Resales down. She won't welcome the economic news, but the business community is welcoming the plan. Business confidence is up. The FTSE is at a record high. The President of the British Chamber of Commerce has said this is the year our economy can turn around. Her miserable strategy of talking down the economy isn't working because Labour's got a plan for Britain.
It'll only turn around this year if he stops being the leader. Perhaps they can do something about that. He wants us to welcome economic news. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to welcome the fact that youth unemployment is at its highest ever. I am not going to welcome the fact that unemployment has increased every single month under this Labour government. He is not doing anything about student loans because he is not governing. And he is not governing because he cannot govern. He is distracted by Labour scandal after Labour scandal. Mr. Speaker, even today now, there is an inquiry into the Inquiries Minister. That is all that they have offered since they came in. The defining moment of this man's premiership will not be breakfast clubs. It will be the sight of the man he appointed as ambassador to Washington just last year getting arrested. No wonder they're calling themselves all sorts of things. He needs to stop moaning about us and start fixing his useless government. Why should the country have to put up with 3 more years of this?
Yet again, she's shown why she is so utterly irrelevant. All she does is cart from the sidelines, talk the economy down, talk the country down. In the meantime, because of our work, what is happening? Energy bills down, as announced this morning. Inflation down. Borrowing down. And what's up? Retail spending is up. Investment is up. Business confidence is up. That's the difference a Labour government makes.